They don't want you to think clearly, because a clear mind is dangerous. If you saw your life with cold precision for just a few seconds, half of your automatic behaviors would die on the spot. You wouldn't keep saying yes just to avoid conflict. You wouldn't stay in rooms where your value is ignored. You wouldn't chase goals that belong to your parents, your culture, or your ego instead of you. You wouldn't keep pleasing people who secretly enjoy seeing you small. And above all, you wouldn't keep making decisions that quietly sabotage your own position. That's why the world trains you to confuse busyness with progress and emotion with truth. Constant motion, constant stimulation, constant noise. But Machiavelli did not move like that. He operated with surgical clarity. And if you learn to think like that, your decisions stop being random reactions and start becoming deliberate moves on a board you finally see. Most people don't suffer from a lack of thought. They suffer from misdirected thought. The mind is active, but pointed in the wrong direction. First comes the emotion, then the story built to justify it. Anger rises, and suddenly there is a noble reason to attack. Anxiety appears, and the brain invents logical dangers to match the feeling. Attraction surfaces, and the imagination fabricates virtues the person never earned. Feeling first, explanation second. When the feeling is distorted, the explanation cannot save you. It becomes a lawyer defending a guilty client. This is the root of cloudy thinking. The mind working hard to protect the emotion instead of protecting your advantage. If that order is not reversed, no technique, no book, no advice will fix your decisions. You are not thinking to see reality. You are thinking to protect a feeling. This is where Machiavelli becomes a weapon instead of a quote. He did not start with, "How do I feel about this?" He started with, "What outcome do I want? And what position must I protect?" He separated his internal weather from the terrain of power in front of him. Emotion was not banned, but it was leashed. It could move him, but not command him. That is the first shift of clear thinking. Outcome first, emotion second. Ask yourself before you react, before you decide, before you speak. What am I actually trying to secure here? Reputation? Freedom? Leverage? Safety? Once that is defined, you can measure every impulse against it. If the feeling moves you closer, it can stay. If it drags you away, it must be questioned, not worshipped. From that position emerges a principle most people never grasp. Not everything true is useful, and not everything useful is entirely true. When you obsess over being perfectly right, you forget that life does not reward philosophical purity, it rewards effective moves. Machiavelli understood that people don't react to reality. They react to perception. He wrote that appearing virtuous often matters more than being virtuous, not because he adored deception, but because he recognized a brutal pattern. People respond to what they believe, not to what is objectively there. So instead of demanding certainty, clear thinkers demand clarity of consequence. The question is no longer, is this idea flawless? But if I adopt this idea, where does it take me? Bad beliefs collapse when you track their destination instead of debating their poetry. But clarity today is not just about cutting through lies, it's about surviving overload. The modern mind is not starving for information. It is suffocating in it. Feeds, videos, opinions, outrage, hot takes, predictions. Every scroll pours new voices into your head until your own voice becomes a whisper in a crowded stadium. This creates a subtle dependency. You distrust your own judgment, so you collect borrowed thinking. Before any decision, you feel the need to check what strangers think, what trends say, what the algorithm recommends. Machiavelli would call this intellectual dependency, the habit of outsourcing judgment to people who will never pay for your mistakes. A mind in that state cannot be clear because it no longer asks, "What is my position?" It asks, "What do they think I should do?" That is why the second rule of Machiavellian clarity is not learn more, but filter harder. Clear thinkers do not chase infinite input. they build ruthless filters. Before letting any new idea inside, they ask two questions. First, does this source have skin in the game, or are they playing with house chips while I wager my life? Second, will this information change my next concrete action? If the answer to both is no, the input is noise disguised as knowledge. It does not matter how smart, viral, or eloquent it sounds. It is just another mental parasite looking for a host. When your filters become sharp, something astonishing happens. The volume of input drops, but the quality of decisions rises. You begin to hear your own reasoning again, not as a faint echo, but as a dominant signal. Once your filters are alive, you start to notice another trap that clouds thinking, the confusion between options and opportunities. The world is overflowing with options designed to keep you comfortably misaligned. Jobs that pay enough to keep you obedient, but never enough to free you. Relationships that soothe your loneliness just enough to make growth feel unnecessary. Entertainment that numbs your frustration just enough to stop you from changing your life. These are not real opportunities. They are tranquilizers. A clear thinker does not ask, what is available? But what is aligned with my dominant objective? This difference sounds small, but it separates those who drift through whatever appears from those who move only toward what serves their strategy. Here is where cloudy thinkers fall into their favorite disguise. They call their hesitation open-mindedness. They keep every door half open, every path half committed, every belief half accepted. It feels noble, flexible, wise. In reality, it is fear of commitment wearing philosophical clothing. Machiavelli would laugh at the idea of permanent neutrality. He understood that a prince who never commits eventually becomes a pawn in someone else's plan. Clear thinking requires decisions made before you feel fully comfortable, because comfort usually arrives after courage, not before. Clarity is not a lightning bolt. It is a process. You step, observe resistance, adjust, and step again. Those who wait to be absolutely sure before acting are routinely devoured by those who act, then refine. If you're ready to take these strategies beyond theory, check the pinned comment. The link I left there is the next step to becoming truly untouchable. Even a disciplined mind, however, can be broken by one force: urgency. That ticking clock energy that hijacks your timing, not your logic. Deadlines, exploding offers. Answer now. Decide today. Last chance. Many of the worst decisions in life are not made with bad thinking, but with rushed thinking. When time is squeezed, the brain defaults to habit and fear. Machiavelli advised rulers to use urgency as a weapon against others, never as a leash on themselves. To think clearly under pressure, you must train a delay reflex. Whenever you feel pushed to decide fast, do not ask, "What should I do?" Ask, "Who benefits if I move quickly?" That single shift pulls you above the situation instead of drowning you inside it. Clarity is not only about avoiding traps. It is also about examining cost with brutal honesty. Most people are intoxicated by upside, praise, gain, status, excitement. They imagine victory, but refuse to stare at potential damage. Machiavellian clarity begins from the opposite side. Before major moves, ask, what is the worst realistic outcome, and can I survive it? This does not turn you into a coward. It turns you into a strategist. The most dangerous minds in history were not reckless gamblers. They were calculated predators who moved only when they could endure the fallout of failure. Machiavelli did not simply think, how do I win? He thought, what can I lose and still remain on the board? Clear thinking is not just choosing right. It is choosing in a way that keeps you alive to choose again. But you cannot reach that level of clarity while lying to yourself about your motives. Many people want their decisions to look noble, pure, selfless. They want to feel like heroes, even when those choices quietly weaken them. Machiavelli was indifferent to purity and obsessed with functionality. A move that looks moral yet leaves you powerless is not virtue. It is self-harm dressed in white. So before significant choices, a clear thinker asks, am I doing this to feel good or to protect my position? Often the option that earns applause is the very one that drains your leverage. Meanwhile, the move that looks selfish from the outside is the one that safeguards your future. Clear thinking is loyalty to your long-term advantage, not to your short-term image. Still, all of these principles collapse if the architecture of your mind is flooded with noise. The modern brain is under constant assault. Notifications, feeds, arguments, half-read threads, emotional headlines. Every app competes for your attention, slicing it into fragments. You think you are multitasking. In reality, you are self-fragmenting. Each context switch cracks your focus, drains your willpower, and turns clarity into dust. Machiavellian thinkers do not just manage time, they manage state. They protect their cognitive environment like a war room. You would never plan a battle in the middle of a carnival, yet most people attempt to plan their life in the middle of digital chaos. If your environment is a circus, your mind will reflect it, no matter how strong your intentions are. Once your internal noise is reduced, you earn access to the next layer, tactical clarity about other people. Clear thinking is not only personal, it becomes predictive. When your own emotions are not steering you, you can observe what steers everyone else. Fear of looking weak, desperation to be admired, terror of being alone, boredom disguised as ambition. When you identify the dominant drive in someone, their next moves become almost obvious. That is where Machiavellian strategy gains its edge. Before negotiations, conflict, or alliances, do not only ask, what do I want? Ask, what do they secretly fear I might do? That lens exposes vulnerabilities without a single threat spoken. You do not need to act on that leverage. Simply knowing it changes how you position yourself. From there comes one of the most lethal tools of clear thinking: adversarial perspective reversal. When most people put themselves in someone's shoes, they imagine sharing that person's feelings. Machiavellian reversal is different. You think from the mindset of someone who would profit most from your failure. Ask, if I wanted to trap myself, what would I hope I believe right now? That I'm out of time? That I can't say no? That I'm not worthy of better? Suddenly the shine falls off the offer, the flattery, the pressure. The bait becomes visible. You stop being emotionally captured and start watching the play from the balcony. This isn't cruelty. It's protection. You are not trying to hurt others. You are refusing to be easy prey. But there is an even deeper layer. Realizing your own mind has been programmed by voices that are not yours. Every I should, every I can't, every automatic guilt often belongs to someone else. A parent, a teacher, a culture, a doctrine, an ex, a trend. Machiavellian clarity audits these voices like a corrupt ledger. When you catch yourself hesitating, ask, whose standards am I obeying in my head right now, and do they benefit more than I do from this obedience? Clear thinking does not just analyze external narratives, it tracks their origin. Until you uninstall beliefs that serve others at your expense, you are not deciding. You are executing code written by hands you have never met. A free mind is not one that thinks a lot. It is one that knows who is allowed to influence its thinking. Even with all this, your clarity will stay fragile if you treat your failures as stains to hide instead of data to integrate. Most people split their life into two piles: the wins that make them proud and the losses they try to forget. Machiavellian thinking does the opposite. Every betrayal, delay, humiliation, misread situation is raw intelligence. After each painful event, ask, what signal did I ignore? Which incentive did I misjudge? Which weakness did they exploit? You are no longer just healing. You are upgrading. The pain becomes a reference point burned into your wiring. Next time a similar pattern appears, you feel the cost in advance, not as trauma, but as a calibrated warning. Clarity becomes antifragile. Every strike sharpens the blade rather than dulling it. As your mind sharpens, another price appears: intellectual loneliness. The clearer you think, the more your moves stop matching the emotional rhythm of the crowd. You pause when others rush. You walk away when others cling. You cut ties that everyone else would maintain just to avoid being the villain. People will misunderstand you. They will call your caution cold and your silence arrogance. If you are addicted to being understood and liked, you will start sabotaging your own clarity just to fit back into familiar chaos. Machiavelli would say it is better to be misread with sovereignty than celebrated in chains. You must choose. Do you want to be clear, or do you want to be agreed with? The two rarely live in the same room. With time, something subtle changes in how you move. The clearer your thinking gets, the less you need grand gestures to prove anything. You announce less and observe more. You stop over-explaining your decisions because you are no longer trying to persuade the wrong audience. You don't rush to correct every misunderstanding because you already know where the situation is heading. This is the quiet power of clarity. The loudest people in the room are often the most reactive. The dangerous ones are calm, not because they are passive, but because their mind is several moves ahead, watching reactions unfold like pieces sliding across a board they drew themselves. In the end, everything converges on one principle Machiavelli lived by. If you do not govern your own mind, someone else will gladly do it for you. Clear thinking is not about feeling superior or morally elevated. It is about building a mind that cannot be quietly used against you. That means you stop chasing emotions that never lead to action. You stop collecting advice you are too afraid to apply. You stop making choices to protect how others see you and start making them to protect your actual leverage. From there, your life stops being a series of reactions and starts becoming a deliberate strategy. When the next wave of pressure hits, the Machiavellian question to cut through the fog is simple: what move protects my position without requiring me to justify it? The answer may not be glamorous, but it will be clean. And in a world drowning in noise, a clean decision is already a rare form of power. If you're ready to take these strategies beyond theory, check the pinned comment. The link I left there is the next step to becoming truly untouchable.